Okay, good morning, everyone. We are in lesson 11, Judges, the fifth part, not the fifth book, but the fifth part of our lesson book, page 19, Judges 11. This concept is obedience, making careful decisions, and we are continuing our study on Samson. So let's look at Judges in the Bible, chapter 13. Judges chapter 13, in our scholastic text, we are in lesson 11, page 19. But in our biblical text, we are in the book of Judges, chapter 13. All right, just for sake of time, we won't reread all 25 verses. If you remember last week, we went through questions 1 through 5. We actually made quite a bit of headway last week because we made it through 1 through 5. So let's just try to recap to see if we can get through it without rereading, just to save time. Just a Nazarite, just remind ourselves the Nazarite day withstood from what kind of food?
Not to use wine.
Right, they didn't drink alcohol, they didn't eat raisins or grapes or any of that stuff, right? Remember that? So his mom stopped doing that, and then the angel said Samson couldn't do that. So that's what we remember there. Why was Samson raised up by God? What was his purpose, his destiny?
To deliver the children of Israel.
Right. So to deliver the children of Israel from the hand of the Philistines, they had been in captive of the Philistines for how many years? 40 years. Okay. So, and they were in captive for what reason?
Yes, evil.
Okay, they did evil in the sight of the Lord. It's interesting that God keeps using the numerical value of 40 for their discipline and correction. When they stray from him, their bondage for 40 years, a reoccurring theme. We know they wandered in the desert for 40 years. Okay, good. We can skip that. Question 5. What kind of people were the parents of Samson? What kind of people were they?
Godly.
Okay, God-fearing, godly people. Good. What else? Obedient. Okay, good, right? Because we know that God, through this angel, gave specific instruction, right? The instructions were extremely specific, and they kept those. Also, let's remind ourselves that Samson's mom was able to have children or not? No, right? So we can't forget that part, that she wasn't able to have kids. So him even being born is a miracle in and of itself, right? So that's the key part. Anything else about the parents before we move on? Humble, right? Humility, right? Their concept was teach us. Remember, they prayed for the angel to come back. Teach us so that we will know how to raise up this boy the way you would have us to raise him up, right? They didn't assume because they were older and they never had children, they weren't parents. They were looking for some help. So that's a nice indication. Okay, let's look at chapter 14. Chapter 14. We're going to get through 20 verses. So let's have someone go through 1 through 10, and then someone go through 11 through 20. 1 through 10, and then 11 through 20. 2 readers. 1 through 10, and then 11 through 20.
Now Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. So he went up and told his father and mother, saying, I have seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now therefore, get her for me as a wife. Then his father and mother said to him, Is there no woman among the daughters of your brethren, or among all my people, that you must go and get a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? And Samson said to his father, Get her for me, for she pleases me well. But his father and mother did not know that it was of the Lord, that he was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines. For at that time the Philistines had dominion over Israel. So Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother, and came to the vineyards of Timnah. Now to his surprise, a young lion came roaring against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he tore the lion apart, as one would have torn apart a young goat, though he had nothing in his hand. He did not tell his father or his mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. After some time, when he returned to get her, he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, and behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the carcass of the lion. He took some of it in his hands and went along eating. And he came to his father and mother and gave some to them. And they also ate. But he did not tell them that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of the lion. So his father went down to the woman, and Samson gave a feast there, for young men used to do so.
Thank you. Someone read 11 through 20.
When the people saw him, they chose 30 men to be his companions. Let me tell you a riddle. Samson said to them, if you can give me the answer within the 7 days of the feast, I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. If you can't tell me the answer, you must give me 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. Tell us your riddle, they said. Let's hear it. He replied, out of the eater something to eat, out of the strong something sweet. For 3 days they did not give the answer. On the 4th day, they said to Samson's wife, coax your husband into explaining the riddle for us, or we will burn you and your father's household to death. Did you invite us here to steal our property? And Samson's wife threw herself on him, sobbing, you hate me. You don't really love me. You've given my people a riddle, but you haven't told them the answer. I haven't even explained it to my father or my mother, he replied. So why would I explain it to you? She cried the whole 7 days of the feast. So on the 7th day, he finally told her, because she continued to press him. She in turn explained the riddle to her people. Before sunset, on the 7th day, the men of the town said to him, what is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? Samson said to them, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. Then the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. He went down to Ashkelon, struck down 30 of their men, stripped them of everything, and gave their clothes to those who had explained the riddle. Burning with anger, he returned to his father's home, and Samson's wife was given to one of his companions who had attended him at the feast.
Yeah, verse 20. You read that just now, right?
Yeah.
Got it. All right, good. Now let's go through this because a lot is happening. So this chapter, Samson is already grown, right? He's older than what in last week he wasn't even born yet. So first he went down to Timnah and he saw a woman, daughter of the Philistines, right? That means she was her ethnicity or nationality was a Philistine, right? And he told his mother and father to get the woman for him. Verse 2, I've seen a woman in Timnah, the daughter of Philistine. Now therefore get her for me as a wife. Question 6, what does Samson's choice of a wife reveal about him?
He was just looking. Yeah.
He saw this woman. Did he speak to her? Did they go on a date? Did they build any rapport? Do they like the same color? Do they like the same sandals? Like, do they tie the same rope around their head? Like, is there any commonality whatsoever?
Just
No.
outside appearance.
Outward appearance, right? Visual. Okay, anything else? What does Samson's choice of a wife reveal about him?
That maybe he's not too particular on the most important things or characteristics of him.
Okay, so it's not a concept of a characteristic of a wife. Let's go just quickly so we can make sure that we're summarizing his choices the same way. Let's go back to Genesis. Genesis chapter 2. And somebody read verses 20 through 25. Genesis 2, verses 20 through 25. Before we get on Samson, let's see the original couple. Let's
So
understand.
Adam gave names to all the cattle, to the birds of the air, to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper compatible to him. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs, and he closed up the flesh in its place. Then the rib which the Lord had taken from man, he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And Adam said, this is bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of me. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother, and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And they were both naked, and the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed.
All right, so in verse 20, once Adam gave names to all the animals. The last sentence says what in verse 20?
There was no helper found for Adam.
So the point of Eve was to be a what? Starts with an A.
Help me.
A helper, right? I can't evaluate if someone's to be a helper to me just visually. I seen her by a riverbank and said, "Oh, be my wife," right? Because that means my mindset is not thinking in terms of helper, right? My mindset is thinking something physical and more possession, right? One of the other things that you can tell from Samson's character is he wouldn't do well in modern society in America, right? Because he viewing this wife as a possession, and he also seemed like he's spoiled because his concept is that his parents should go get the wife for him regardless, right? Now there's some customary practices that are different in this part of the world than us, right? This concept of marriage really funnels more through the parents in this part of the world and this time, much in I would say Eastern Europe and Asia, Africa, and some countries in South America still have this concept, right? But this is more of a customary practice, but it still speaks to how he views relationships and how he views women, right? So just keep that in your mind. All right, question 7. How was God able to use this marriage to serve his own purpose, right? How did God use this marriage to serve his own purpose? What's the second part of verse?
You use that as a way to get to the Philistines because Simpson's whole purpose was to bring God's people out of the and so out of all of that, he was able to kill 30 of them and give their clothes to those men.
Good. Yes. Let's reread verse 4. What does verse 4 say?
However, his father and mother did not know that it was of the Lord when he was seeking an occasion against the Philistines. Now at that time the Philistines were ruling over Israel.
All right, so to Ricardo's point, it's true, right? God's going to use this as an advantage, right? So we see, let's see if the question goes into, before we get to question 8, let's just summarize, right? So after he asked him to go get the wife, he goes and does something that the parents don't know about. It's something physical. What does Samson do? Okay, to his surprise, it was a young lion came roaring against him, right? The Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he tore the lion apart as one would have torn a young goat. Now, a goat and a lion is by no means comparable in size or strength, right? So this is a big deal. And he had nothing in his hand, so he did it with his bare hands. We're in verse 6. But he did not tell his father or mother what he had done. We'll find out why he didn't tell them in the future. Verse 7, then he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. So now he's building a rapport, right? So the sight was first. 8, after some time, when he returned to get her, he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, and behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the carcass of the lion. He took some of it in his hand, went along eating. When he came to his father and mother, he gave some to them, and they also ate. But he did not tell them that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of the lion. All right, question 8. What 2 exhibitions of strength are described in this chapter? What 2 exhibitions of Samson's strength are described in this chapter?
Taking down the line.
All right, taking down the lion with his bare hands, right? We see the Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and the Bible says mightily, right? This isn't a small feat. And then also the other thing is what Ricardo had alluded to earlier in this battle. Right, killing 30 men, right? So this is a big deal in terms of this physical strength. All right, let's keep going a little bit further. Let's look at this riddle. So he came down, verse 10, his father went down to the woman. Samson gave a feast there for the young men used to do so, and it was so that when he saw him that they brought 30 companions with them, okay? Then Samson said, let me pose a riddle to you. If you can correctly solve and explain it to me within the 7 days of the feast, and I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothing. But if you cannot explain it to me, then you shall give me 30 linens of garment and 30 changes of clothes. And then they said to him, please tell us the riddle. His riddle was, verse 14, out of the eater came something sweet, and out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. So now Samson is like a baby poet, right? Because he's giving his riddle out of the eater, right? The lion is the main eater right here, the beast, right, came something to eat, which you think, okay, maybe he's eating his flesh. But the second part says, out of the strong came something sweet. And now we have this concept that we understand. All right, 3 days they could not explain the riddle. So it came to pass on the seventh day that they said to Samson's wife is what nationality? Philistine. So they came to him, verse 15, and said, do what to your husband? Entice. What does entice mean? Right? Persuade. What else? Manipulate, right? If the prosecution is trying to entice somebody to snitch, they're going to dangle something in front of them that they want, right? So manipulate the situation. He may explain a riddle to us, or else we will burn you and your father's house with fire. Have you invited us in order to take what is ours? Is that not so? So now they're giving her an ultimatum. If you don't entice your husband, we're going to kill you and your family. So she went to her husband and wept and said, what? Okay, this sounds like 2018. Because people get into arguments and, oh, you don't love me. Wow, that's a big leap, right? That's a huge leap to open up an argument. You don't love me, right? You don't look at me like other people. You don't like, this is, whoa, that, and when you start an argument like that, how is it ending? People are, what's the next step? People are like, whoa. I'm not prepared for you. And not only do you don't love me, you hate me, right? And she said that, why? What was her reasoning in verse 16? Right. Didn't even tell me the riddle. His response was what? Who else don't even know about the riddle? Hey, my own mom and dad don't know about this riddle. Right? So, don't take it personal. Not like I told everybody but you. I told no one. Her response was what? 17. And she wept, well, how long? My goodness, that's a lot of crying, right? And it happened on the seventh day that he told her because she pressed him so much, okay? Then she explained the riddle to the sons of her people. So the men of the city said to him on the seventh day, what is sweeter than honey and what is stronger than a lion? Oh, so they got a baby poet in them too, right? Because they responded in a riddle, right? What is sweeter than honey and what is stronger than lion? Sounds like we playing Jeopardy. Right? And then he said to them, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would have not solved my riddle. Again, Samson in 2018, probably not going to survive. Not in America. Right? Probably not talking like that, not really going to survive in America, right? What is a heifer? Explain what is it. A what kind of cow? Oh, goodness, a fat cow. So just as a word to a wise, right? Even if you get into an argument and a woman says, you hate me and you don't love me, it's probably not a good idea to call her a fat cow, a fat anything, or a heifer, right? Because this is modern times. You're not going to get too far, right? You won't have to worry about, you could be as strong as Samson and you still not going to be able to control her wrath against you, right? Because it's a difference between man strength and when a woman get upset strength. Right? Any guy's been in the room and been in play fighting with a wife or a girlfriend and she punch you and do it hurt. Yeah, you think if you still got strength just because you're a woman, don't mean it's gonna hurt. Right? So this concept is if you've seen a woman angry before, you know a lion is the least of your worries if you in 2018 saying this to a woman, right? So we understand that in context in terms of now. And then let's just finish it out. 19, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, and he went down and killed 30 of the men, took their apparel. So the agreement is broken. Took their apparel, gave the change of clothing to those who had explained the riddle. So his anger was aroused, and he went back up to his father's house. And Samson's wife was given to his companion, who had been his best man. Right? So now he's done with her. Okay, let's look at 15. Somebody read for us the first 10 verses of 15.
But after a while, in the time of wheat harvest, Samson visited his wife with a young goat. Said, I will go in to my wife in her room. But her father did not let him enter. Her father said, I really thought that you hated her intensely, so I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister more beautiful than she? Please let her be yours instead. Samson then said to them, this time I shall be nameless in regard to the Philistines by the farm. Samson went and caught 300 foxes and took torches and turned the fox's tail to tail and put one torch in the middle between two tails. When he had set fire to the torches, he released the foxes into the standing grain of the Philistines, thus burning up both the shocks and the standing grain along with the vineyard and grove. Then the Philistines said, "Who did this?" And they said, "Samson, the son-in-law of Timnah, because he took his wife and gave her to his companion." So the Philistines came up and burned her and her father with fire. Samson said to them, "Since you act like this, I will surely take revenge on you, but after that I will quit." He struck them ruthlessly with a great slaughter, and he went down and lived in the cleft of the rock of Etam. Then the Philistines went up and camped in Judah and spread out in Lehi. The men of Judah said, "Why have you come up against us?" And they said, "We have come up to bind Samson in order to do to him he did to us."
All right, and someone read 11 through 20.
Then 3,000 men from Judah went down to the prophet and Samson. "Don't you realize that the Philistines are rulers over us? What have you done to us?" He answered, "I merely did to them what they did to me." They said to him, "We've come to tie you up and hand you over to the Philistines." Samson said, "Swear to me that you won't kill yourself." "Agreed," they answered. "We will only tie you up and hand you over to them. We will not kill you." So they bound him with 2 new ropes and led him up from the rock. As he approached Lehi, the Philistines came toward him shouting. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. The ropes on his arms became like shattered flax. The lions dropped from his skin. Finding a fresh jawbone of a donkey, he grabbed it and struck down 1,000 men. Then Samson said, "With the donkey's jawbone, I have made donkeys of them. With the donkey's jawbone, I have killed 1,000 men." When he finished speaking, he threw away the jawbone, and the place was called Ramoth Lehi. Because he was very thirsty, he cried out to the Lord, "You have given your servant this great rain. Must I not die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised?" Then God opened up the hollow place in Lehi, and water came out of it. When Samson drank, his strength returned, and he revived. So the spring was called En-Hakkor, and it was still there in Lehi. Samson led Israel for 20 years in the days of the Philistines.
All right, great. Question 9. What became of Samson's wife? We read it in one verse in the last chapter, but we understand fully in the next chapter. What happened to her?
The father gave it to another. There's one at home.
Okay, so the father gave her away, right? He came back after a while, right? This is verse 1 of 15. And he visited his wife with a young goat. And he said, "Let me go into my wife into her room." But her father would not permit and said, "Hey, I really thought you thoroughly hated her. Therefore I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister better than she? Please take her instead." Did Samson say, "Okay, that's a fair trade"? No. So to say he was upset is a gross understatement, right? So he came up with what plan? Question 10 was, what was Samson's grievance against the Philistines? How did he retaliate? He burned the crops down. So he took how many foxes? And then he tied them tail to tail so they got to run together. He put a torch in between the tails, right? He lit the torch, and then the foxes started what? Running everywhere. When they ran everywhere and the torch fell over, what happened? Burned, verse 5, right? Burned up both the shocks and the standing grain as well as the vineyards and the olive groves, right? What was the attitude? Oh no, before we get there. Before we get to question 11, the Philistines came out and said what? "Hey man, who did this?" Right? And they said what? Snitch real quick. Who did it? Samson. And then they start going into his family tree, right? The son-in-law of Timnah, because he was taking his wife and giving her to his companion. So the Philistine came up and did what? Goodness, right? So remember the fear on last chapter. So poor thing, she still ended up dying, and so does her father, right? Philistines burned her and burned her father, okay? And then Samson in verse 7 says what? Since you will do a thing like this, I will surely take revenge on you, and after that, I will cease. So he attacked them hip and thigh with a great slaughter, and he went down and dwelt in the cleft of the rock of Etam. Now the Philistines went up and camped in Judah and deployed themselves against Lehi. Okay, now we get to question 11. What was the attitude of the Israelites towards Samson? What indicates their lowly condition? So now we get to question 11. We're in verse 10. How does the Israelites respond to this? Were they happy? Hey, thanks for doing that.
No.
Hey man, you getting us in trouble. Don't you realize that the Philistines rule over us? So their plan to him was, what would they do to Samson? And what? Wow, they're going to give him over to the Philistines. No loyalty at all, right? None. No bro code at all, right? Samson said, just make sure you don't kill me yourself. Because he had a plan. And they said, what? Sure. Plus, they probably scared of him anyway, right? So they said they won't. So they bound him up with the ropes, right? In verse 13, how old ropes or new ropes? New ropes. And brought him up from the rock. Then when he came to Lehi, the Philistines came, what? Greeting him nicely or upset? Shouting against him. Then the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and the ropes became like flax. What's flax? People who eat healthy know what flax seeds are. What's flax? Just green, nothing, just blowing on the side of the rope, right? So the ropes became like flax, right? So he bust out of the ropes, and then what did he do? He took a jawbone of a what kind of animal? Last time was a lion, little donkey jawbone. Now, how many people seen a donkey before, right? Because donkey's smaller than a horse. Now, a horse, some horses' head could be maybe as wide as this podium, but a little donkey, just a little, right? It's like a donkey and then a mule. Donkey not really that big, right? So a jawbone of a donkey, if we're thinking about a battle, we're going to look for a sword, some glass, a whip, a stick, right? We wouldn't be thinking, oh, look, let me grab this jawbone of a donkey and I'll be able to do some harm. But what happened when he took that jawbone in verse 15? How many people were he able to get? 1,000 men with this jawbone. In verse 16, with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps. That means just bodies on top of bodies. With the jawbone of a donkey, I have slain 1,000 men. Question 12, what was Samson's rule of action against the Philistines? And what is the rule prescribed by Jesus? So before we get to Jesus, what was Samson's rule of action against the Philistines? Your book is telling you verse 11 is your cheat to answer that question. What was Samson's rule of action against the Philistines based on verse 11?
Doing what they did to him, yeah.
Say it again.
Doing what they did to him, yeah.
Look, eye for eye. I did to them what they did to me. So what's the big deal, right? Why am I offending you? Let's go to Matthew 7:12. Let's go into the future.
It says, so in everything you do to others, what you would have them do to you. But this sums up the law and the prophets. Okay,
so the difference between in the Old Testament, this concept of an eye for an eye, which is what Samson is describing to. Samson said, what they did to me, I did to them, right? Jesus is saying, do to others as what? As you would want to be done to you, right? That's the difference. So when you think of eye for an eye, just in terms of context, if somebody were to kill your daughter, in this concept in the law, really is you need to kill the other person's daughter for it to be even Steven, right? Because that's even. But then is that fair, though, to the daughter? Well, probably not, right? But if you're talking about even, that's what it is. But in the New Testament, Jesus's concept is what that violence will only beget more violence. Because when you do that, are they going to stop? No. They came with 1,000. Maybe next time they're going to come with 50,000. Anyone from any hood or street environment understands that, right? You would have to clean the whole block out in order for it to be peace. You couldn't leave a cousin, auntie. You couldn't leave a relative because why? How do I know that person won't try to come back and get revenge, right? So you would have to kill and destroy completely. So there is no such thing as just even Steven because people are going to keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And the Bible teaches what violence does, right? You do this thing, I do cause and effect, chain reaction, it just keeps going on, and there's no peace. All right, verse 13, describe Samson's great victory over the Philistines. What did he credit for the victory? Now this is what we read 15, but all the way to the end of the chapter.
He killed 1,000 men with
Yep, and in verse 18, who he give the credit to?
Himself. He says, with donkeys, brought all night, struck down 1,000 men. Now are you going to care?
Yep.
After this victory.
Yep, that's true. And then he got thirsty. Now this is why I broke this that way. Then he got thirsty, and then what did he say? I'm 18.
To God is you have given this great deliverance by the hand of your servant.
And keep reading.
And now I shall die of the thirst and fall into the hands of the
Oh,
uncircumcised.
okay. So when this was, because remember, we didn't realize he was a poet, right? So he had this, he gonna give a sonnet, right? A haiku, right? He give this haiku with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of a donkey, I have slain 1,000 men. Then he get thirsty, and almost the same extreme as his wife in the last chapter, he give God credit and say, what? Oh, you gave this great victory, now I'm about to die of thirst. Well, probably not that thirsty that he's gonna die, right? But God did split the rock, and the Leah and the water came out, and he drank, and his spirit returned to him great. And then verse 20, he judged over Israel how long?
20 years.
Okay, so what's the name of this book?
Judges.
Judges, right? So he was a judge. When we learn in Sunday school, we don't really spend that much time thinking of him as a judge, right? But this book is about the judges of Israel, right? So he was a judge, and he ruled over Israel how long again? 20 years. Okay, so let's see if we can get into his demise. Is his wife at this point alive, or she passed away? All right, she passed away. Poor thing, right? All right, let's go to chapter 16. 16. All right, somebody read for us the first 14 verses.
Now Samson went to Gaza and saw a harlot there, and went into her. When it was told to Gazites, saying, Samson has come here, they surrounded the place and lay in wait for him all night at the gate of the city. And they kept silent all night, saying, let us wait until the morning light, then we will kill him. Now Samson lay until midnight, and at midnight he arose and took hold of the doors of the city gate and the two posts, and pulled them up along with the bars. Then he put them on his shoulders and carried them up to the top of the mountain, which is opposite Hebron. After this, it came about that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. The lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, entice him and see where his great strength lies, and how we may overpower him, that we may bind him to afflict him. Then we will each give you 1,100 pieces of silver. So Delilah said to Samson, please tell me where your great strength is, and how you may be bound to afflict you. Samson said to her, if they bind me with 7 fresh cords that have not been dried, then I will become weak and be like any other man. Then the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 fresh cords that had not been dried, and she bound him with them. Now she had men lying in wait in an inner room. And she said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he snapped the cords as a string of tow snaps when it touches fire. So his strength was not discovered. Then Delilah said to Samson, behold, you have deceived me and told me lies. Now please tell me how you may be bound. He said to her, if they bind me tightly with new ropes which have not been used, then they will become weak and be like any other man. So Delilah took new ropes and bound him with them, and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. For the men were lying in wait in the inner room, but he snapped the ropes from his arms like a thread. Then Delilah said to Samson, up to now you have deceived me and told me lies. Tell me how you may be bound. And he said to her, if you weave the 7 locks of my hair with a web, and fasten it with a pin, then I will become weak and be like any other man. So while he slept, Delilah took the 7 locks of his hair and wove them into the web. She fastened it with the pin and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he awoke from his sleep and pulled out the pin of the loom and the web.
All right, good. This sounds like, for the record, one of the dumbest relationships of all time. This goes to show you, when you in a relationship and people say only God can judge me, that's not true. We could judge a dumb relationship too. Sorry. Don't mean you don't love the person, right? No one's saying that. The two of you could love each other, but it could still be a dumb, toxic relationship, right? Just because we not in a relationship with you, oh, you don't know, you right. We don't know them, but we don't need to know them. Right? We don't need to know everything about Samson and Delilah's inter moment. We just need to hear this story, and we can surmise This is probably top 10 dumbest human relationship of all time, right? Okay, let's see. Question 14, what more can be said of Samson's character within the first 3 verses? We're not at Delilah yet. What can be said of his character? First 3 verses of 16. What kind of woman does he meet? Harlot. What's a harlot? Dear God. So he's a judge over Israelites in the last verse of 20 and 15, right? And a judge is a spiritual leader, right? And he goes in to Gaza and he hooks up with a prostitute. So already we're not looking at any spiritual guidance whatsoever in terms of doing the right thing in terms of relationships, right? So already we can surmise what type of character. This is where when you go into the New Testament, right? And Paul tells Timothy and Titus to go out and get deacons and elders, but that you got to look at their character. This is where the brothers get confused. Because the brothers say they do so much in church, but you can be a great song leader, a great preacher, do Lord's Supper great, and have a rotten character. Brothers confused. When we have the men's meeting, they be confused at how the two don't relate. You can provide for your family and be a rotten husband or a bad father. Men don't understand that. Men feel like if I provide a home and put food on the table, that should be enough. Sorry, because what year we living again? 2018. If this was 1950s, maybe. But is this the 1950s? No, right? This is 2018. So that kind of fathering or being a husband, that don't work anymore in America, right? Concept. Eyes have been opened. So just because you're doing, that doesn't define your character. That's why Jesus made such a big deal of what come out of your mouth, because his point was what come out of your mouth come from where? Your heart. That's what your character is built from. So we can see that he has a very rotten character, especially towards women, right? Samson's view to women is wrong and bad. He's in a position of power. He's a man of God. He has a lot of good strength. He was blessed. His whole purpose of being raised up was to destroy the Philistine, but it still don't negate the fact that the way that he treats and views women at his core is wrong. Ladies, a guy at his core, you can't change that. Sorry. I believe that changing is almost impossible. Changing is the hardest thing to do in this earth for a person. How do you change? People all the time telling me somebody changed. How? If you like ice cream, how do you change from liking ice cream? You may stop eating ice cream, but can you tell me you no longer like ice cream? Isn't that almost impossible? Now, some people can do it, just like some people can change. But most people, do they change? Most people, no. Most people do not change. Most people repress their desires and try to control their actions. But once you're an alcoholic, just because you stop drinking alcohol, are you cured from being alcoholic? No, you still an alcoholic. You like alcohol. You're not drinking alcohol because it's destructive to your life, but you're still an alcoholic. When you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, they tell you the second you forget that you're an alcoholic and think you're stronger than you are, even if you haven't drank in 20 years, you can relapse. Change is difficult. So when you're in a relationship and somebody's character is bad, again, not saying nothing about your love for them, didn't say nothing. You may love them more than anybody has loved ever, and they may love you too. But the point is their character. If their character is rotten at the core, only God could change them. And do God forcefully change people? No. So therefore, the person must want to change. People think that love is going to change, especially women to men. They feel like, oh, I can change him. No, sweetheart. No, you can't. That person already was raised. You about to be a wife, not a mom. So if a mom and a dad who could beat this boy could not get him to be a better person, why do you think out of love you can love rottenness out of him? Can't be. Can't be. And it hurts to hear that, but it cannot be. Somebody has to want to be a better person. Let's look at church, right? I can't make somebody be baptized, make somebody be a good Christian, make somebody remain faithful. They have to want to have a relationship with God, right? Just because you're around godly people don't make you godly. Just because you're in a relationship and the woman or the man is faithful to you don't mean you're faithful. You have to want to be a better person, right? So that goes to a person's character. This is why we have to be more conscious of looking at character. Parents need to be more conscious of a spouse for character. So-and-so brings someone home, especially for kids who go off to Christian school. And they come bringing somebody back Thanksgiving, and by Memorial Day, they're married. What is this person's character? Oh, they're a Christian. Sweetheart, Samson was a man of God. What that mean they're a Christian? Do that mean something? Oh, they're a Christian. That means they're a good person. You know how many Christians in jail? There's some Christians in jail. You know how many Christians cheat on their taxes, lie? You know how many Christians beat their spouse? Look, what that means. You have to look at a person's character. You know how many Christians every Sunday don't allow God to change their character? Some of us are rotten people inside. We're mean, we're rude, we gossip, we talk about people, we don't show love, and yet we worship every Sunday. At our core, when you get to the sheep and the goat, Jesus is talking to religious people. See, worldly people don't need to be judged, because you already know when every knee bow in the tongue, you say, what? Man, I messed this all the way up, because God is real. So that's quick. You can just do mass judgment. The point is, the religious people, and Jesus is going to say, right, this group, you didn't do this, spiritually. And the goat said, what? What are you talking about? When we didn't see you, all this good stuff we were doing. You didn't do it to the least of these, so you did it to me. You didn't do it to me. Therefore, what? I forgot you?
Never.
I never knew you. Those are to the religious people, not to worldly people, right? Worldly people, if you talk to them, especially people in the street, they understand, know, and believe who God is. You go out in the street, they'll tell you, I know it's a God. Right? They'll start quoting scripture. You thinking, man, did this person go to church? The point is, they're not willing to leave their sinful life to have a relationship with God. It's easier to work with somebody like that. The harder part is people who already think they're doing the right thing, mixing the world with God. That's the goats. That's also Samson. That's also the Israelites, right? Israelites didn't stop worshiping God. They added the worship from the other gods into the worship with God. See, it's hard to work with people like that because that's cunning and conniving. It's easier to work with them if they stop worshiping God altogether. Because once you start mixing in, if I mix hot water and cold water, how do I separate them? Or if I mix chocolate syrup with milk, how do I separate them? Hard now, right? But it's one thing if you stop drinking the milk and you only was drinking chocolate syrup, I just have to convince you to put the chocolate syrup down. But if you've been mixing chocolate syrup with milk, your point is what? I'm still drinking milk. See how hard it is for me to break that out of your mind? Because I'm going to keep telling you, yeah, but you're adding chocolate syrup to it. Yeah, but I'm still drinking milk. That's how people who are religious feel. I'm still worshiping. Right? Don't they say that? I'm a good person. Only God can judge me. People in church they say those same things to negate the fact of desire of wanting to be a better person. I'm trying. I'm on my journey. You don't know how hard it is for me. Those are all buzzwords for people who have checked out spiritually because they have no desire of being a better person. Being a better person takes a lot of work. It's much easier to come to church and not be a better person because it's almost impossible to change yourself. That's what we miss in terms of our relationship with God. Who are you at your core? If you're late, you feel like, oh, I always come late. I guarantee you that someone in your family has said that. Someone at your job has said that. Someone in your friends. Every aspect of your life, if you think right now, somebody had mentioned you being late. Therefore, you know, oh, I'm a late person. That's how you can surmise what type of character traits you have. If you're rude, church people are not the first people to tell you you're rude. Stop being like that. Oh, I don't want to go to Bridgeport. They were mean to me. They told me I'm rude. Sweetheart, everyone in your phone book have told you you're rude. Your family has mentioned you rude before. Co-workers have mentioned. We're not the first one to say you're rude. Your characteristics show. That's why Paul told Timothy and Titus to what? Go ask the community about these men before you appoint them, because they'll tell you, you about to make who or what? Even worldly people say, what? Oh, they can't be, oh, what y'all call it at your church? An elder? I don't care, an elder, a deacon, an elder is, an eldra, a shepherd, whatever you saying, this person can't possibly be in no form of leadership in church. Can't worldly people see that? Yes, worldly people would be like, oh, this person's supposed to be religious, they swearing. This person's supposed to be religious, they mean to me. This person's supposed to be religious, they're stealing. Because they understand the concept of what you should be doing to be a religious person. Samson does not. And again, he's in leadership, a man of God, and is blessed. So what does that say about us? That means that if our characters don't change at our core, we have a disconnect with God. Even though God is still blessing and working through Samson, Samson is not a good God. See the problem there? Even though God is blessing him and working through him, he's still, at these moments that we're reading, not a good God. He's not a godly characteristic person. This is why we need to look at this story of Samson different than how we learn as kids, right? As kids, you learning about the strength, and then with Delilah, don't throw Delilah under the bus first. Samson is the problem. Delilah is herself. Samson was already a problem before Delilah. How many of y'all thought in the last chapter that the wife was Delilah? You forgot, right? Oh, I just school only taught me about Delilah. We didn't even get to Delilah yet, and we heard about another wife and a prostitute. That means Delilah is not the villain in this story. Sorry. Oh, you parents, oh, you know, this fast girl done took my son away. No, she did not. No, she did not. Oh, this worldly boy that took my daughter. No, sweetheart, sorry. Your kids were already bad. You just didn't know about it. And they found somebody who can enable their desires. And when you take that, usually it's toxic. That's why I said this is top 10 dumbest relationships, because you brought toxic and brought them together. See how warped Samson's mind is, how you can be doing the right thing in terms of action, but still be spiritually disconnected from God. You can be in Bible study having great comments, and you can know every scripture in the Bible. But Paul said, if you don't have love, you are just a loud noise saying nothing. This is why I say all the time, as Christians, let's work on our character, especially for us in this church. Let's stop talking about what we're doing. I don't want to hear about somebody having 10 Bible studies this week. What kind of father or mother are you? What kind of husband or wife are you? You're going to tell me about the things you're doing. That's what Samson will say. And then I'm going to say, why are you sleeping with prostitutes? See the problem? Start looking at your character, especially those of us who've been baptized a long time. If you've been baptized a long time, it's time to transcend to the next stage of your relationship. If you've been married a long time, it's time to transcend into the next phase. You shouldn't be in the same phase as somebody who's only been married 5 years. If you've been married 20 years, you shouldn't be in the same phase of your Christianity if you've been baptized over 10 years than somebody who baptized 2 years. The author of Hebrews said, in a year's time, you should have been further along. He said you should have been able to teach these things, and I have to come back and reteach them, and you are just on the fundamental teachings of Christianity. In 1 year, he only gave them, I said 10 years. So we have to start thinking about our relationship. Relationship is where your core and your characters come out, not actions, right? Actions is somebody can say, okay, oh, I relapsed or I did this, but you can see, oh, this person meant well, they just did bad. This boy don't mean well. Right? We all say, oh, you look, Samson, he kind of mean well, poor thing. He just, boys will be boys. This is not boys will be boys. At his core, as a man, the question is, what can we be known of Samson's character? Samson is a bad boy. I hope no father reading this would be like, man, I would love to give my Christian daughter to Samson. This is not a candidate for a good spouse. Right? Yes, he's strong. If we needed to fight, we'll call Samson. If we looking to give our daughters to him, sorry, bro, wrong number, new phone, who this? We're not giving our daughters to Samson. See the difference? We have to learn to be able to discern that in ourselves and in other people. Because if you can't see that, how can you help somebody become a better person? And if you can't see it in yourself, then how can you see the wrong in other people? Jesus' point was, that's the difference between the person only having a little speck of dust, but you having a whole plank, and you busy worrying about the speck of dust instead of thinking, how can I get this 2x4 out of my eye? Worry about yourself first, the mirror. Look into the mirror this week and expose the things that you know you do wrong. Stop worrying about other people in church, what they're not doing to you. What are you doing? First, you help somebody. Oh, well, I needed help and nobody helped me. What help did you give in the last 30 days? Tell me the last 30 days, would you help the church body, not the couple people you like? That ain't nothing helping people you like. What does Jesus say about that? Even enemies, right? Even the worldly people would have their nice to the people they like. You want to show God's love? You need to be good towards the people that, what did Jesus say? Hate you. Oh, so don't tell me about the cookouts and the things you have with the couple people in church you like. Tell me about the things you doing for people that you know you either don't talk to or can't do anything back for you. Now we're talking about showing love. And if we all spent more time doing for someone else, we would have no time to complain. If couples in the same bed spent more time doing for their spouse, then they would not fight. But when you fight, both sides are what? Selfish. I keep saying what you're not doing, and you keep saying what I'm not doing. How come one of them don't stop, be the better person, and start doing what the person is saying? Same thing in church. This next 30 days, do something for the people that you worship with. Do something. Not that, I always call Denise after church, and okay, so call David instead. Well, no, I don't like talking to David. I like talking to Denise. Well, then you telling me something that worldly people do. You was telling me you was being like Jesus. Jesus will call someone that he don't talk too much. I don't like David. I like Denise. Oh, so then you're not trying to be a better person. See how that works? Be the better person. Don't be Samson. Samson is, again, I'm a man of God. I'm doing God's will, but I have a bad personality. People should just accept that. Wrong. We do not have to accept bad characteristics, especially in modern times. That's why I said this is not the 1950s, right? If Samson was in the 1950s or before, maybe. But in America, if you act like this as a husband, you're going to come home one day and where would your spouse be? Gone. You're going to come to church talking about, oh, look, divorce is wrong. Hold up, sweetheart, about divorce is wrong. What kind of husband were you first? You want us to go chase after her? Let's talk about you first. Oh, I was a bad husband. Well, that kind of makes sense why she left then, right? I mean, we're not saying it's right, but can we understand why she left? See, that's what I'm saying is we jump on Delilah in the story. This boy was bad already before Delilah. And then if he gonna see that Delilah is asking him how he is strong, he tells her the lie. She does that thing. He's stupid then. Right? Is he smart? If you say like, hey, tell me your strength and why. I just want to know. It's just that way we could become closer. And I tell you a lie, and I wake up and I'm bound up in the lie I told you. That much means she's trying to harm me, but he keeps doing it. So is Delilah really the issue? No, the serpent wasn't the issue in the garden. They already wanted to eat that fruit. They just needed encouragement. Somebody who is an addict, you already have addictive tendency. You just need somebody to feed that. And then somebody say, have you ever tried this? And you say, what? That's what I've been looking for too. But then you make it seem like, oh, we need a war on drugs. So let's slow down with a war, because that's aggressive. Let's talk about your addictive tendency. No, I don't want to talk about that. Right? Because that's how you have an addictive personality. You do things in excess already. So the problem really is you more than it is the drugs, because even if we remove all the drugs, is it a high probability that you would substitute the drugs for another addictive trait, personality, or action? Yes. So first you have to change that from within. That's what we're talking about. Yes, sister.
Well, I was thinking about Samson. Now, he's with Delilah, he's already been with other women, and he's a judge for 20 years. I mean, when did he meet up with Delilah? He's not a young man.
Right.
He should know better.
Yep. And that's sad. That's some people in church, right? The author of Hebrews to the audience was what? Y'all should know better. I have enough trouble trying to convert people off the street than to re-talking to Christians. Maybe God is telling some of us this morning, y'all should know better. Maybe he's saying that to you. Especially if you somebody who always have someone else's name in your mouth. Maybe God is saying, I don't want to hear that no more. Let's talk about you. I don't want to talk about me. I'm a good person. Okay. Some of us should know better. If you've read your Bible more than once, you should know better. Truthfully, right? You got to admit, hey, God, I do wrong willfully. I know I'm doing wrong. Somebody just baptized, do they know better? No, they come to the Bible and say what? Man, that's wrong. And we say, yeah, that's wrong. I didn't know that. But can I say that? Can I be in Bible study if I raise my hand and say, wait, what y'all said? What? That's wrong? Y'all would look at me like I lost my mind. Because you would assume, don't you know that's wrong already? So I should know better. If you knew better, grandmother say what? You should do better. That's how it works. So this week, look at this differently. Look at the story of Samson and Delilah as Samson and see the areas in your life that you're not changing in terms of your character at your core, right? Don't look to blame someone else for the wrong things that are in your life. Do people play a role in those wrong things? Yes. But the common denominator between church, family, work, associates, friends is who? Yourself. So let's look at some mirror facing this week. It's going to be difficult, but this week, think about the things that you know at your core you have a problem with that impact other physical relationships and your relationship with God. And once you realize those things, work on them throughout the week so that you can achieve being a better person. Okay, we're over time. Let's end here. Next week, we'll look at more into the specifics of how the downfall happened after this third test. So let's have a word of prayer and transition into our worship service. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful and blessed day. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to study a portion of thy word this morning. We pray that we can self-examine ourselves. We pray, dear God, this week that you give us the opportunity to look inside the mirror, your word, the Bible, and read the things that are convicting to our heart, knowing that your word is living and breathable and active and is sharper than any two-edged sword, is able to pierce through and separate even soul from spirit. So we ask, dear God, that we learn about ourselves from your word. We know that in the beginning, the word was with you and the word was you, and that word came down and became flesh and gave its life for us. So we ask, dear God, that you give us opportunity to self-examine this week, to look into our hearts and the things that we have to give up to you and work on being a better person, and give us the self-control and the willpower to go down that path of righteousness even more strongly. As we transition into worship service, we pray that all things be done according to your will and that we're able to worship in spirit and in truth, for we know that the time has come where true worshipers that you are seeking will worship in spirit and in truth. We pray that you bless safe travels for those that are traveling here at this time without the loss or harm of any, so that we can be gathered up in the bond of love in your presence, worshiping you. And it's in Jesus' name that we pray these things. Amen. Amen. All right, thank you for all of our Bible readers and all of those who had comments. All of the men who are baptized, if you wouldn't mind going back towards the equipment table, we'll have a quick prayer